Here for Follow Up Boss office hours on a Friday, a special office hours with Emily Smith. How are you today?
I am so good. I'm so excited to do this with you. I was just telling Lee that I agreed to do this because I just wanted to hang out with Lee for an hour. So it's a bonus that we get to hang out with all of you guys too that are tuning in, but excited to be here with you.
Absolutely. I think it'll be fun to just catch up. It's been a little while since we talked, but talking really focused on operations today. And we got some great questions in Facebook as people come on. We're going to dig into those questions. If you guys have questions as we go, if you could post them in the Q&A, that would be really helpful. It's a lot easier to manage if we can put them in the Q&A instead of the chat. You're welcome to drop in the chat where you're from and say hello. But let's use Q&A for questions. Also, if you're on Facebook, we'll do our best to check your comments and whatnot. Some of it maybe after we get going. So enough housekeeping. My name is Lee Adkins. I do some stuff at and with Follow Up Boss. And I am joined by Emily, who is the COO of Wemert Group Realty. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Wemert and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I would love to. First of all, Lee saying I do just a little bit of stuff is way underselling his amazing unicorn skill set of operations minded creativity, the whole gamut. So Lee is an absolute expert at what he does. So I'm just going to give you the accolade since you're not giving it to yourself. So
Fair
we'll
enough.
start
Well, and
there.
we'll get into what is that unicorn later because we're both unicornish.
So anyway, appreciate that, Lee. So I'm Emily Smith. I'm the CEO of Wemert Group Realty. We are what we call a teamerage down in Orlando, Florida. And a teamerage, if you've not heard that, we stole it from somewhere we really don't know where, is a brokerage, an independent model that we operate as a true team. So right now we're about 60 people big. This year we will serve, I believe our count is looking to be 930 families
Wow.
with 60 people for like I think it's like $290,000 or so, or $290 million. So
Cool.
we had a really good year amidst all of this craziness. We're divided into like our agent sector. We have a full-time marketing department. We have full-time in-house client care coordinators, which are transaction managers, and then administrative teams, which help service our leads and help queue up things in the back, which we'll get more into today. But that's a little of how we're set up down in Orlando.
Awesome. That's great. And a little bit about you. I'd like to start with some background. Your story is super interesting. We both kind of got that creative thing, which we may or may not get to. Um, but yeah, kind of how did you get to Wemert or into the real estate fold? And then obviously then we'll go a little deeper on your day to day.
Sure. So the really short version of this is that right out of college, I worked for a really large church as the creative arts director. So my role was to work with volunteers, a lot of them, and manage the department heads for anything to do with music, video production. How does the larger picture fit into what we're trying to accomplish as a whole? And so more of an operations piece, but working with volunteers. I did that for a number of years, got a little burnout doing it, was an art minor in college and up and decided I need a change. So I think I'm going to open a photography studio. And because I had a really great network from the church, I was able to kind of build that overnight and launch. And then I opened a storefront and I ran a pretty successful wedding photography studio for about 8.5 years. And I flew all over the country and a few places around the world to do that. And I built up to have a small team. And again, same thing. I'm apparently on like an 8-year cycle of getting bored. And so I decided I needed a different shift and then landed in real estate. And I landed in real estate because Jenny Wemert, who I'll just say it now because that way it doesn't have to come up later, is the most amazing person I know in real estate, put an ad up asking for pretty much a unicorn. So she threw, like you do when you're hiring, you throw everything at the wall. She threw it all at the wall and said, I want a photographer who likes staging, who likes graphic design. I mean, you name it. She just threw it all on the board. And a friend of mine sent it to me and said, hey, your face keeps coming to mind. I totally think this is you. And I messaged her and said, hey, I think I might be your unicorn that you're looking for. I never in my life thought this was going to be a permanent transition. I never thought this would be where I would land forever. I thought it would be a way to figure out what was next, transitioning. So I was on the team as team photographer for 2 weeks and then immediately stepped into marketing person and did that for a couple of years and then kept grabbing pieces and kept learning the business, kept chasing down experts to try to learn all of the systems and all of the pieces. And now here we are 6 years later, and now I'm the COO of our team, and I'm loving it. I'm never bored, because real estate changes all the time. The game changes, the systems change. As we grow, we have to keep wrangling things, and I plan to be here for. I promised her I'll make it over the 8-year mark, so we're there. We're there.
Nice.
But
That's
that's kind
funny.
of my backstory. Yeah.
That's an interesting trend, because I have the same thing, and I think I've said it on webinars before. It's 6 years.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily a major shift. It's just, you're a person with multiple interests. And so it's nice to just change it up a little bit. Doesn't have to be a leap into a new industry. So I'm with you on that. Great. Well, I love that part of your story. And I think, if and as we have time, we may get into like, what is this operations type person? If you're looking to hire one, like what are some key things to look for? But I think we had some great questions. I want to dive right in. But also, I think going into that, why don't we answer, like, what is operations? Because I think I work with a lot of people that will, they don't quite really know what operations is. So why don't we begin with the definition, then we'll get into questions.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great place to start. So operations for me is the blend of what you're doing with your systems and how that pairs with your strategy. And you're putting those two pieces together. So you're like, what are we trying to accomplish out there in the world? And then how are we going to go do that? And so it's the practical piece of the, what am I trying to accomplish and how am I going to get there?
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And it is, I think it's important to note that it is the blend of the strategy and the tactics, right? You have to be doing it for a reason that makes sense.
Yeah.
But just having ideas and having a plan doesn't really make stuff happen either. So happy medium. Cool. We have a great question from the Facebook post from Mr. Barry Jenkins. And he said, how do you make sure the priority alerts and follow-up boss are actioned on by the team?
Yep. So we do that in one of two ways. Our folks down here, I told you, we operate as a true team. So all leads kind of come in through the main funnel we use Follow Boss, obviously. So everything comes into Follow Boss, and our agents are on lead shifts, and we are almost too deep on every single lead shift of agents that are on shifts, and they are watching. These are for uncontacted leads that are coming in through that main funnel, all the smart lists, all the alerts, and managing new leads. And then for contacted leads, we have what we call our A team. It's really like our leads admin team, but all of their first names start with the letter A. It was kind of a fluke. And so we call them the A team. And in my head, they have like capes, and they're like, they're superheroes behind the scenes. Right. They're serving up those alerts to agents that are in the field and maybe not watching their follow-up bosses or watching the alerts because they're with a family. And so their job is to serve it back up to the agent and saying, hey, a contacted lead just raised their hand, or hey, they need something. And if the agent can respond, they grab it. And if they don't, then the A team picks up the ball for them and responds as their assistant and says, hey, I'm Britt's assistant, or I'm so-and-so's assistant. I can help with that. Or Britt has asked me, can she call you at 4? And they just create that transitionary space. So uncontacted brand new leads are being serviced by the agents on leads. And then the contacted ones are being serviced more by our A team group.
I think that's really smart and interesting to note. I've actually seen that a few times. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen that more and more recently, where people have, agents get first dibs, but then something happens if agents don't do anything within 15 minutes or 2 hours or whatever that is.
Yep.
And then also that kind of coming after and just making sure stuff doesn't fall through the cracks. Yeah, that's solid. I like that. And I think, I know you and I are going to both say this a lot, because we both believe it deeply, and it's part of the many reasons that we get along so well. But it really depends on what you're trying to do. If it's a team of 3, you probably don't need to set up a system where if somebody doesn't get it, then somebody else has to get it, because there's 3 people.
Right.
But if you're trying to build or scale or open multiple locations or whatnot, you probably need a system to make sure that the thousands of people that are coming in don't fall through the cracks, or at least get a touch in some way,
Yeah, well, and I said this in the beginning, but our team of 60 is serving over 900 families this year. So our agents in the field are very, very busy. So the thought of them even being at a computer or being able to manage all of their alerts doesn't work in our world. They need the leverage of having an administrative team behind them because we want them ultimately in the field. We want them with families doing the other bits of real estate. And so we've just realized for us, we had to provide the leverage in order to make that work. And in order, it's amazing when the lead line is ringing, like that's a gift. And so taking care of it by putting the leverage underneath of the agents is the only way that works in our world. But like Lee said, if there are only 2 or 3 of you, you may not need a whole team of people. You may just need coverage and trust with each other. Like maybe there's a way you can cover each other on those alerts, or people are on shift, or there's all kinds of ways to think through how to do this on multiple, levels based on how you're structured.
Right. That's great. Awesome. I love that. And another question, or I guess it's maybe a little related. How have you scaled onboarding so it isn't a time suck? Because everybody loves onboarding in real estate, right?
It's like our favorite subject, right? So we actually went to work on this year because we had a little extra time and space to think about it, just based on the year that we were having. And knowing that if we wanted to continue to grow, we were going to need to be able to really streamline. So Barry, I thought this was a great question and super timely because we just put the work in on this. And I've run 2 classes through this new system of agents. So I feel comfortable sharing it with you as something we've authentically really done and seen work. We are starting with leveraging pre-onboarding. So pre-onboarding, these agents know at least a couple of like days, weeks is the ideal that they're coming in and going to be getting started. So we leverage with video content and like a large pre-onboarding checklist. So the checklist is going to cover things like your brokerage paperwork, their licensing, making sure all that's moved over. Getting a headshot done ahead and sending that in means the marketing department can have things like business cards ready or website pages ready, or the things that normally you're scrambling in the beginning of onboarding, trying to get somebody ready, you're no longer scrambling and they come in set and kind of ready to go. Some independent study on our technology. So we use Google Drive and calendars and Gmail. So just basic videos on how do we use Google Calendar? How do we use Google Drive? How do we use, these things? And then we also used Follow Up Boss and Slack behind the scenes for just technology. So we do a basic Follow Up Boss 1.0 video that we've created in-house ourselves, that it's just a very basic, here are the things we would need you to know. And on that pre-onboarding checklist, they're required to put in 25 people from their sphere by hand. And the reason is it makes them push the buttons, it makes them look at the levers, they can rewatch that video as many times as they need to, and they can start to understand, okay, what is a source? Okay, what is a state? And they can start to wrap their minds around it before we put them in a classroom setting where we're talking at a deeper level about how it works. So the first thing that we do to leverage ourselves is force them through that pre-onboarding checklist and the videos. And honestly, how an agent completes those things tells me a lot about how they're going to come into their training, or if they're going to come in well to training. And not every agent is going to make it through those perfectly. And we know that. I don't expect perfection. We don't tell them that. Obviously, we want to see what they'll do. But that's the first thing. The second thing is we do a porch delivery. Our runner takes them a gift about 2 days ahead of training. And in that is a manual that we've created. It's printed so they can write and they can take notes. And then we ask them to carry that thing A, through training, but B, probably for the first 6 to 8 months of their business around with them, so that they have all of their notes. It's about 100 pages when it's said and done. We've got all of the contracts printed in there and everything else. So they've got it all in one place. We also put some swag items in there so they come in feeling like they have a team polo, or they have the stuff that's going to make them feel from day one like they were invited into the team. We include, if they've sent in their headshots in time, their name tag, their business cards, and then a personalized welcome note. It doesn't matter how large we scale, we will always stay personalized. It's a part of who we are as a brand. And so I really believe day -2 matters, that gift matters. It's amazing just how little of a thing can make people feel welcome. And then the training part, it's 2 weeks of in-house classroom training mixed with shadowing, because we realize people can't just sit and learn all day, they have to go do practical. So we do a lot of like morning learning, afternoon practical. And we leverage ourselves on that by pulling on team members who are experts. So we've identified, what part of the buyer process do we need to teach our agents? Because again, our agents are highly leveraged. We have marketing, we have client care coordinators, we have other folks doing things for them. So they don't need to learn about all of that. And that's just the benefit of our model. But they have to learn their parts. So we spend our time during those 2 weeks focused on how to make them the best buyer's agent they can be and how to be the best listing agent that they can be in our systems. So they spend about 2 weeks in class. And again, we leverage ourselves through our WeMates. So I have a WeMate, which is a teammate, but WeMate that teaches contracts. And there's homework assigned every night over those 2 weeks. So they're practicing writing contracts. They're practicing opening doors. They're practicing previewing properties to make sure that they're really picking up on these things. And the leverage comes too in the homework. Because I'm not with them when they're opening doors. No one on my team, like somebody may meet them for the first time out to shadow, but they're out practicing on their own and doing the things and then reporting back to us. I have a point person for every training that runs it. And at this point, we have an agent. She does like their agent development basically. So she runs that 2 week of training. So I'm not sitting in those trainings. The only training that I'm in at this point is day one for session 1, which is culture and history. Right. So our very first session of the 2 weeks is to run people through who were we as a company, because you're coming into the middle of our story. Like there was story before you and there will be story after you. And we invite WeMates to come into that and teach our culture with us. And we do that very much on purpose. So I invite WeMates that have been around for 15 years and I invite WeMates that have been around for 6 months, because I want the ones that have been around for 6 months to keep hearing the story. And I want those that have been around for 15 years to honor their legacy and get them to be able to share their story. And now the new folks that are coming in, we try to run people through 5 or 6 people at a time, are hearing both of those, like it's connecting stories, right? So now they don't feel alone. They're like, man, I just met 12 other WeMates on my team. Right. And that's all kind of that first session. So they go through this big training for 2 weeks. And then the very last session of those 2 weeks is a what's next. I think a mistake I see made a lot and that we made too is that we're like, okay, you got through training, good luck, best of luck to you, you're going to be great. And we send people out there and then they like fall on their face because they don't know what to do. Right. So the very last session, we assign them a mentor on the team, and it's an experienced agent who has been on the team for longer than a year, who has success, obviously, so that they can help coach, train, teach, bring this person up alongside of them. And we also assign them a client care coordinator right away. So that agent will work solely with that client care coordinator for us every time they have a buy side or a list side transaction. So now they have agent resource and they have a staff inside resource as well to help with paperwork or checklists, or I don't know how to turn that in, or what do I do with it? And now those two pieces, they can lean on each other to try to help pull this agent up as well. They also were given another list at that point of all of the things we expect them to do over the next 30 days. So here are your dailies, here are your weeklies, and here are your monthlies. And we ask them to commit to that. So their dailies, they're going to be checking in with their mentor every single day for the first 30 days. And then eventually at 60, it goes to like a couple times a week. By the time you get to 60 to 90, it's like once a week, and they just kind of weans them off. And then they have to do things like make 200 calls out of our lead pool before they're eligible for any team referrals or to be like on our lead, to apply to be on the lead line. So we just try to stair step them. 2 week intensive, 30 days with another person. They can start to do real estate. If they pull a lead from the lead pool, they can work it. They have the information now. They've been through the training to be able to work it, but they need to do the work and they need to put in the time to make sure that they're really ready to service the clients at a high level. And then we split the mentorship fees with them. So mentors get paid. And the way that we run it is that the agent splits part of the fee and the brokerage pays part of the fee, so that it's not so heavy on the new agent. And it's a way for us to honor the time for the legacy agents that are putting that in as well.
That's really smart.
It was a really long answer, but
no, it was great. And I just want to dig into one thing that I think is kind of representative of this, or certainly is applicable to everyone, no matter how big they are. Just the idea that you are setting that up in advance, and you're literally starting the culture before they're even joined. I mean, they've signed something, I'm sure, but they're not even technically, they're not on the website, they're not anywhere yet, but you are showing them the expectations that you want. But I love what you said about Follow Boss as far as having them actually enter people, because that's when it comes in to be like, yeah, what's the stage? Like you can watch a video all day long, but then when you have to change the stage, you're like, oh, I know I heard this, but how do I do that?
Yeah, so what's interesting is that's session 2. So we start with
Nice.
culture, and the very next piece is
Right.
database, because the database
Well,
is the gold, and it's a live person going through like, okay, you've got 25 people in, let's look at these, let's really dive deep on why. It's the why. So
right.
then we're teaching why they're, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it's funny because I had this conversation on a session with Casey Tate, the last office hours with Casey and his team, talking about the idea that, when you recruit for leads and people get there and you're just like, here's a bunch of leads, that's a whole different feel than, hey, you got to put some people in, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to practice showing houses. And then you might be able to get to leads once you've done this, this, and this. So I know that's not possible for everyone who's on, but just the concept of like, you must do this, this, and this before
Yep.
you have earned the right to do this, instead of here's 2,000 old leads, go call them.
Well, it's having a plan, right? All in it, our plan has scaled. Like I said, we've spent time this year really focusing on what should the plan be, what has worked in the past,
Right.
what hasn't. And that's
Right.
how we ended up with my like 12-minute explanation of what we're doing. But it does highly leverage leadership to not be in the process. And it means connection on the team, which is so like, that's one of the most powerful parts is
Right.
they're meeting other agents who are teaching them and who are actually doing the work. So
Right.
they're going to have a different level of validity to these agents teaching the process. And now they've built relationships because they're there with them. And so now
Right.
when they need help with a contract, or they need help with whatever it is that they're teaching on, they have another resource to go to
Right.
besides just our like agent, success
Right.
director.
Well, and you're setting up your mentor for success because they know that the person is already, they had their manual with some contracts, and so they're not showing them how to add a tag and follow boss. Like they're focused on transactional and people stuff.
Yes. I want to make sure we answer a couple of the questions I saw in the
it.
chat because I think it affects. But Sep, I noticed you asked if we're a team of 60 agents or 60 total. We're 60 total. We have 30 right now. We have 37 licenses, but only this year 30. I believe it was 33 of the 37 were in the field selling. So our agents, we have some that do 2 a month. We have some that do 10 a month. Our agents are all allowed to choose their own goal. And we build around our agents, setting their own goals. As long as they're great team members, it's fine with us if they want to do 2 a month. And if they want to do 10, we'll support that too and help them figure out the leverage piece. But we're 60 total. So the average is more like 24 to 36 deals a year, just to make sure that we cover that. I see somebody else asked how long it took us to grow to 55 or 60 people. So I stepped on the team 6 years ago. We were 18 big. And you've got different levels and layers to growth. So we have not scaled fast on purpose, because for us, we wanted to scale when we had enough leads and when we had the ability to scale from the inside, because we could staff up, and we believe in staffing up ahead. We want to make sure all of those things were right so we could support people coming in. So for us, it's not just about signing up every agent that knocks on the door. It's about finding the right culture fit. And we've built this reputation that we really believe we need to protect in the marketplace. So we hire really slowly. I would say we've started to scale in the last 2 years because we have the leads to support it, and we have the structure in place that's ready to scale, because there are some of us in the background focused on the scaling part. So my role, and we were talking about operations today, is really to think ahead on what's working right now is not going to work to serve 1,500 families a year, but it's working right now to serve 930. So how do we scale up and be ready for that? Or, do we need another transaction coordinator, or do we need another marketing? What is it that we need, and thinking ahead. So all of that comes, but it's taken us, I think, some time to be ready to scale faster.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing to always emphasize as well, is that this isn't your first iteration of your onboarding process.
No, this is like the
V8 or whatever.
version. I think we're on version like 50, since I've been around, like it's not.
And I always say too, most of that's when we're learning what not to do, right? It's mostly like, oh, don't do that next time.
Or you find the hole, you're like, oh, we didn't teach that. Next time we got to add that to the list to teach you, or review. And then there's that balance too of cramming people's heads full of information. And it's like, how much can people really handle in one sitting? Like not as much as we think.
And let's be real, if they're good salespeople, they're probably not people, like you said, they're not people that want to sit in a classroom for 8 hours. So how do you get the best of both worlds? So I love that. If you guys could drop your questions from the chat in the Q&A, it helps because we can mark them answered. If you just drop questions in the chat, they just kind of go off the radar. Let's hit one more question from our pre-questions, because I want to get to all these questions and I want to have free convo about all that. But somebody asked in the group earlier, how do you provide sellers with a similar experience,
Yeah,
regardless of having a different agent?
that's a really great question. So it's leverage for us somewhat, and it's also just great training. Scripts are tough because I don't think it's necessarily about having the right script. It's about having the right knowledge. So we train our agents to be masters of their craft. They all understand how to speak our marketing plan, even though they're not marketers. And they're not, I mean, in real estate, we're all marketers. We're marketing,
Right.
but they can speak about our marketing process. They can sell our team. They can sell the experience, the whole thing. And that's number one, because they need to all speak similarly to sellers so that those experiencing us in the marketplace,
Right.
know what to expect,
Right.
and
they get what they tell them.
right. And it's so that we can actually make good on our promises. So there's that piece. The second piece is leverage. So we have a listing coordinator behind the scenes who is working with every agent that has a listing to make sure that paperwork is right, to make sure that the seller has a point person that's not just the agent, to ask questions about paperwork or about just the initial onboarding part of listings. And then our transaction coordinators, which we call client care coordinators. So if I switch between the two, that's why. I just didn't want the word transaction in an email signature. I don't want clients to feel like a number. That was a thing for us. But they're right there alongside of her. So she passes the ball once it's active, and they're picking right up alongside of that agent's. The agent is pitching all of that in the appointment. So, hey, we operate as a true team. I will be your point of contact. But behind me in the office is, Tiffany, she's our listing coordinator. So she may reach out to you with any questions or if there's a problem with paperwork. And then my partner in the office, most of our girls are licensed. So they truly can do everything that an agent can do, is going to be right alongside of us every step of the way. And they're pitching that up front. And they're saying like, hey, I may be with somebody like this, you won't be able to get me, but guess what? They know everything happening with your file, everything happening with your home in the same way that I do. You're going to have better luck reaching them. And they pitch them as a better point of contact. They pitch them as more knowledgeable on purpose so that the client feels incredibly comfortable picking up the phone and calling the other team members. And then marketing too. So because this leads to every home gets marketed. All of our marketing is built for luxury property. So whether it's a $60,000 condo or $1 million plus home, we're going to do professional photography. We have a professional photographer on staff. We're going to virtually stage every vacant listing. It doesn't matter what price point, because listings are the mousetrap. That's what's going to bring the buyers. We know this. So to service our sellers well, we want to market the home properly and get as many eyeballs on it as possible, from a very hyper local level all the way up to an international level. But on the other side of it, we are using our listings to generate more buyer leads. So we want everything to look amazing, and it's worth the extra cost to make that happen no matter what your price point is. So the experience is the same for the sellers because the agents have similar pitches. The inside team is really hitting the same checklist marker points for all of our folks, even if where the property is being marketed is a little different, or who it's being remarketed to, or how it's being sent out may be a little different, or where the marketing is being attached to based on price points or areas of interest. But other than that, the process is very much the same for every person coming through.
That's great. And that really does make the consumer experience better and certainly more consistent. It makes it easier to refer because people know that their people are going to get the same. I mean, it literally feeds the entire machine to have it that consistent. It's great. I love that. I mean, you've always been that way, and I love that. And I love to hear that you guys have grown even more into that, because I knew you've had that for a while, but I can see how it's now feeding itself.
Well, and then it gets fun because once you stabilize, you can add to it. So, and that would be my recommendation if you're listening to this going, I don't have those people in seats. I don't like, you can start with a part-time person. You can honestly hire like a VA for some of this. There are a lot of options for outsourcing help or part-time help when it comes to some of these pieces now. We're doing fun things now where we've said, hey, we're stable on how we're marketing our listings. What else could we do? And so now when we take a listing, we build an area page for our website, or if it already exists, we update it because we're already doing the research on that area to figure out who is the target buyer. What am I trying to do here? or zip code pages. So we now have an area page on the website that gets updated, a zip code page on the website that's being updated based on every listing that we're taking, and a neighborhood page. So now we're building this really organic like SEO just by focusing on what listing we have and how to kind of spread the wealth. But we didn't start with that. We started with how do I get this on MLS and maximize all the fields and make sure if somebody's looking for in-law suite, they're going to find it as an agent no matter which way I put it in. And we started with that. And then you add social media, and then you add fancy Google or, you know, remarketing or whatever you're going to be doing. And then you add things like area or zip code or neighborhood pages. So you just start by the one and keep adding as you stabilize.
Yeah, and I think, ultimately that comes in some level back down to mindset. And I was going to ask you to share this because I know you've shared it before, but I think it's representative and super relevant for everybody. Can you tell a little bit about how you guys do your holiday cards? I think that's something that anybody on this call can start doing right now, especially at the end of the year.
Yeah. So systems are like, to me, the way you set up yourself for success, and you do it in a time when it's slow. So for us in Florida, it gets a little bit slower, like end of August coming into September, and then it starts to pick back up towards Christmas. And we're year round here because it doesn't snow. And I'm originally from Michigan, so I can say that, enjoying in the sunshine for the holidays. But so late August, early September, we start thinking about our touches for next year and what we're going to do. And the one Lee is talking about is that we pre-build a Christmas or holiday card. We pre-build a Christmas ornament and get all of that ordered in, all of the like, you know, tissue paper and the stickers and the stuff it makes to do that. And our team on the inside in the office, when we close a transaction, pre-builds the Christmas card, pre-stuffs the ornament, pre-puts in the handwritten note, and goes ahead and puts postage on it. And then it literally sits in a bin in our office until the first week of December. And then the first week of December, somebody picks up that bin, we take it to the post office, but we do it as a part of our closing checklist on every single, so we're not in December trying to build 1,000 Christmas ornaments. We're building them all year round consistently, and then they just go out. And so it's thinking through, when do I have downtime? How do I think through what my touches are going to be for next year? And then how do we pre-build those so they're just ready to go? And so when you're busy and running in March and everybody's crazy because the market's picking up, you're not thinking about trying to design a Christmas ornament or trying to figure out a lottery card or designing an event because you've done all of that up front. And I think that that's something that we could all do a better job. I could do a better job of it. We could all do a better job of it, but you just do it 1 year at a time. Don't try to tackle it all at one time. Say, you know, if you're not doing any touches, say, I'm going to do 2 touches next year and figure out in your slow time how to do your 2 touches.
Right.
And do those really well, and then add to it, you know, the next year, because you got the first one stabilized.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Let's tackle a couple of the Q&A questions, I think, real quick. We've got some more but some of these are relevant to stuff we just talked about.
Sure.
And we'll hop back to Sep's original question on this too. He mentioned that you're kind of at almost a 1-to-1 agent to staff ratio on some level. And I know that's not wholly true because you've got some leadership team and, you know, transactional, but maybe just speak a little bit more to that structure and kind of.
Sure. So we realized along the way that we wanted our agents to focus on, again, those things that they were going to be best at. So finding hidden inventory, servicing the client, writing the contracts, doing the negotiations. I didn't want them dotting T's or dotting I's and crossing T's in the background. So we've just said, hey guys, come be the best agents that you could be, and we'll set all of the other things up for you to just happen. So the administrative teams in the background are building ornaments, are running closing checklists like we were just talking about, or client care coordinators are helping our agents and our clients through this like 6 end hurdles of real estate. And I know somebody asked in here too, like what they're using to manage all of that. We're actually in transition right now. We're moving to a new system because of growth. We realized our old system was not going to support this year's volume and our families. So we're moving them into like a monday.com dashboard that talks to Follow Up Boss, it talks to Slack, and it talks to Dotloop. So those are that's the stack that we use for our transactions. I know somebody asked that. And so all of those things link together, and we're in transition on that one. We were using a company that we felt like occasionally your technology, you outgrow it. So that's where we were on that piece. But I have 5 client care coordinators that work with a specific, call them a pod or a silo, and they all have names. So I have like a Z posse because Sarah Zach is the, client care coordinator. And our client care coordinators act as like a conduit for that group of agents. So the agents always know who they're calling. They can always pitch their partner in the office because they know who it is. They know her name, they know her well. She is helping them with training. She is making sure that if they miss a team meeting, they're getting the content that they need. She is helping build the culture. And then every pod, array, posse, whatever they're calling them, has an agent partner too that they're leaning on for extra help with training or extra help with best practices. And that's I believe really strongly when you're building a team and finding people that can lead from the middle and building your undercurrent. I really believe the magic of culture is built there. Not leadership needs to model it, certainly, but finding and pouring into your people and asking them to lead. I talk about this all the time, but leading from your seat and doing what you can with what you have, it will grow your organization in ways that you can't even imagine. So it takes leadership slowing down and pouring into their middle and asking their middle really strategically to step up and lead from their seat. So they're all girls, so I'll say girls, our 5 are leading their pods of their specific group of agents with an agent sort of helping them. But really they're meeting with leadership behind the scenes and we're coaching them on what could you be doing to support your agents? What could you be doing to elevate your group this year or help people move forward? Or what problems are you seeing that we're not seeing in the group that maybe we might need to address? But elevating your folks across the middle, that was a little bit of a side tangent to your question, Lee, but I think that's super important to how you can scale faster. So that client care coordinator seat is not just somebody checking boxes and who, they're amazing at what they do. We always say they're the best in the business, which I believe, but there's so much more in our organization than just that because we've asked them to be, and they've all just stepped into it. And most of the time people are just waiting to be asked. So
yeah. Oh, and you support them. I mean, it's funny because you and I get questions all the time that are like, what do you use for that? What tool do you use for that? And sometimes it's just, we have a person who's focused and that's what they do. And we support them,
Yes. Yeah. Not everything can be automated. Like we live in, there are lots of things, and we always say work smarter, not harder. Lots of things and systems can be automated. And that's a beautiful thing. But there is something about having a real person, real energy, real, direction. There's something magic in that. So those client care coordinators, we've got those guys. Full-time marketing department, I have someone focused on brand marketing and someone focused on listing marketing. And that's something that not all companies can do. So, and it wasn't like that when I first started. Like I told you at the beginning, I started as photographer for 2 weeks and then stepped into marketing. It took me a very long time to even remotely get out of that seat. But in the midst of being in that seat, I realized like, man, we need to split this. Like this needs to be 2 separate focuses so that we can focus over here on brand marketing as agent accolades, spotlights for not just our agents, but for our inside staff too, or spotlights on things that our clients are doing that are amazing that we should be focused on, or our charity work, or our whatever it is. And then on the other side, the listing marketing, that seat, we charge that person to go be the expert in every portal, in every, like, they need to be experts because the game changes constantly, as most of you know. So it's their job to be watching the game, to figure out how to get to the top, to figure out how to, manipulate the right fields so that everyone can find, again, it starts back in MLS, like you got to know all your fields and you got to know how to make sure everyone can find, because you owe it to your sellers for visibility. And so we've put the focus in that seat. That administrative leads team is 3 big underneath of a director who is watching them, helping them, coaching them. And then she, as the director, is watching and coaching and helping the agents with their databases. Because we realize that everyone is well-meaning and well-intentioned, but they're going to drop the ball all day long on the database piece because they're out serving the person right here in front of them. Right. So that's a big piece of it. There is some leadership above all of that, which we have a CFO who does all of our financials and compliance. And then I'm kind of tucked in there as the overall systems and tech and I'm kind of just some creative brain trust at this point for those things. And then we have our leadership, which is our broker, and our team leader, Jenny, who kind of live above that. So our agents are highly, highly, highly leveraged. And that is how they're able to go serve so many families at a high level.
Yeah, that's great. I love that breakdown of it too. And I think, it's funny when you were explaining that, part of me led me to just think about this. And I guess I thought about it before, but I guarantee you must ask the question why and how so much, like 1,000 times a day.
I
Why
think
do we do it that way?
you
How
have
can we
to.
do it better?
It's a part of my gift mix. I don't like things to just be average. I
Yeah.
want them to be great. And
Yeah.
I try to charge other people to feel that way too. Because the trick is that nothing, even as an operations person, like I can't live around my feet. I'm not the expert. I'm not in the field with clients. I'm
Yeah.
not dotting the T's and crossing the I's. So I need other people to feel as passionate about asking how or why as I am.
Right.
And then my job is just to bridge the gap across all of them to go, okay, if you change that to make that better for you, how is this, going to affect these guys over here? And
Right.
it's just somebody's got to have the overall picture. That is
Yeah.
operations. Is
You're
the overall
global
picture.
minded, but you still have to, it goes back to strategy and tactics, right? You have to have the strategy, but you got to ask the agents, like, what's your pain point? What
Yeah.
can we do better? What's slipping through? So
Yeah.
I love that. We have a ton of questions in the Q&A, but let's get through these questions and then we'll just rapid fire because we have great questions. I just want to get to all of them. Somebody asked, how does the ops team successfully contribute on the lead gen side, and then reviews, referrals, events? So just more on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love that question. We operate as a rainmaker model. So for us, like we're constantly thinking about how to generate new leads. And when people come in day one culture, it's a part of the conversation. It's a part of our DNA that you're not going to come on and just take advantage of the lead model. You're going to come on and you're going to think through, who do I know? What relationships do I have? How can I maximize those relationships? Which relationship in my life could get me 3 relationships, not just one? And it doesn't matter what seat you're coming into, we're having that conversation with you. So the success of the team is important because it is ultimately what trickles down to individual success. So we try to help everybody think in terms of, if I'm successful, you're successful. And we use a lot of we language. We try to get people out of the habit of saying or I did this, or I got those leads, or this is my source. It's our source, our leads, and it doesn't matter what seat you're sitting in or where you come from. And so as leadership, we speak that way. We ask everyone in the organization to get on board with that. I think the largest return for us, though, is truly in just investing in our own people. So we have very, very little turnover. I was doing our count as we hit January 1st, we will have 25 WeMates that have been with us out of our like 60-ish for over 5 years, which in real estate is a little bit unheard of.
Yeah.
And so to me, like investing in them, investing in their families. And I kind of said this earlier, but these are real people with real goals and real needs and real bills. And so taking it seriously that we don't hire quickly or just bring on anybody, because again, we're a rainmaker model, means we can bring on the right people that have servant hearts, that want to serve our people at a high level, that want to carry the vision forward, that want to speak in we. But it means that we're not having to constantly go figure out the new sources, because it naturally grows with the people that are staying for a long time because they're investing in it and their part is growing. So that means the whole thing is growing. I'm super proud that of the 930 families we think we're going to close this year, we're 40% repeat referral this year. Wow. Which is also a little bit of unheard of too. But we have worked so hard on trying to teach our team, take care of the person in front of you and the rest will take care of itself. The money follows, the success follows. Just take care of this person because they'll bring you the next relationship. And I know a lot of agents are a little fearful of paid leads. We're not fearful of them. We just understand you don't make a lot of money on them. Yeah. So you make the money on the next deal. So you got to take care of this one and then let that person bring you the next one. And that's where the money comes from. So again, for us, it's just about investing in our own people. Reviews, we have 1,200 5-star reviews across social media. That's Google, Zillow, Facebook, you name it, like kind of putting those all together. The entire team is responsible for helping get those. And we tell them that from day one, because that's our reputation and that is where people are researching you. So it doesn't matter what platform they originally find you on, they're probably Googling you or Yelp, whatever they're doing to try to see, are you valid? Are you who you say you are on your website? I do it every time I look for a product, or if I'm going to work with somebody, I'm looking them up too. So I try to approach everything we do with that mindset of how would I find this person? How would I, and we've just tackled them a little bit one at a time. So for a season, we were focused on getting our Zillow review number up. For a season, we were focused on getting our Facebook number up. For a season, we were focused on getting our Google review account up. And we made it a part of our closing process to ask specifically about that source in that season. Or we've said to teammates, hey, who is a VIP for you that you gave really great service to in the last 6 months that hasn't written you a review yet? Could you just ask them for the favor to write a review on whatever source we were focusing on for the moment? But those things matter. When clients research, they want to see your expertise. They want to see that you are exactly who you say you are. But we charge staff with that too. So it starts by giving really amazing service, so you deserve it. And then it ends with asking for it. And then events, I know that was on the list. Our events are team and client focused. So we are doing things as a leadership for our team in the same way the team is doing things for the clients. So for client events, where the team is helping, everybody has a role. It doesn't matter if you're staff or agent, you're out there, and their families are invited. So if we do a movie event, their kids get to come, and we actually get our kids t-shirts every year at Christmas. So our big teammates are Wemates, and our little ones are We with 2E Wemates, and they get t-shirts and they wear them and they feel like they're a part of the group. And to me, there's some power in including the families, because when you work really hard in real estate and it's 24/7 and it doesn't stop, it's a little bit thankless to the maybe spouse or supporting person or whoever's behind them or the kids. So allowing them to come out and celebrate with us brings buy-in from the additional parties attached in that family,
Right.
which is a part of it. So that, I think that kind of covers what Barry was, or what Jill was going for there about reviews and referrals and all of that. But that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, that's really great. I love that. There's so many unique things in that I wish more people would hear and do. And 40% at scale is absolutely insane. I mean, it's easy to do when you're one or two agents and you can just call your people, but that's impressive. You guys should listen to this lady.
It's one thing at a time. I always
Right.
feel like we leave people feeling so overwhelmed because they're like, oh my gosh, this is so much. Like,
how am I going to do that? You're like,
one thing. Yeah.
In 10 years,
one thing.
You can do all this, but start now.
And I would take a call with just about anybody to help you get there. So that's an open invitation that you can message and say, hey, or maybe we could put together another little, lunch.
I was going to say, based on the number of questions, this might be a weekly thing or monthly at least. Well,
yeah, we could. I'm happy to, and I only know what we're doing, right? So I can only speak to what, and I can tell you about our failures too, and hopefully shortcut your learning curve on some of the things that we've done too, because we've definitely had those.
Right. Sure. Actually, why don't we do a whole thing on that? Let's do a whole session on what not to do. That'll be a little more, than like the sexy social media. Like, we have all this stuff. It's great.
I think,
but here's what we did. So that it might be a 3-hour session, but we'll go there. So somebody else asked about ponds. Like, what's the best way to use ponds with different segments, potentially like an ISA or newer or more experienced agents?
Yeah. So we use ponds in our world only for uncontacted leads. So leads that have come into the system, they go through our lead funnels. And again, we've got a couple of live people answering, and that lasts for us for the first 3 days. So we have a live person 18 hours a day on shifts that are checking those leads. They're making like the next follow-up attempt. And then we have some automation attached to the beginning. On day 4, they drop into a pond. And they segment into, for us, it's a buyer general lead pond, a seller lead pond, which we all know that like there's lots of opportunity. Even with buyers, they may have a house to sell. That's actually a nugget that if you haven't thought through that script, always ask, do you have a home to sell too? That's something agents miss in their lead gen, because that's your buy sell, and that's big. But we also have a Spanish speaking pond because we live in Orlando. And so we get a lot of Spanish speaking leads. So they drip into 3 different ponds, and then those ponds, it's open fishing for any of our eligible agents to go in and hunt through those ponds. And then we have made sure that we have automation attached to those ponds as well. So we use Ylopo to retarget our ponds, to make sure that they're still seeing properties. They still have something to engage with that's showing up maybe in their social media or somewhere else. We also have some emails that still are being dripped on them while they're in the ponds so that we give them a chance to open, but we're not putting our real life person time on pond leads unless it's somebody in there specific. And our automation will kick up anybody that is wanting to see a property, or if they favorite a property, or if they've done anything else we've sort of deemed needs to be a priority. It's literally kicking it back up into an alert bucket so that our live administrative team catches it. And there's a person right there on it, but we're not sitting on the pond leads.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, everything really is a big prioritization, right? Because there is literally by definition more things and more people in that database than any of us could ever get to.
Yes.
So how do we get the ISA with the right person, or the agent with the right person? So, that really is the key. And I know it's easier said than done, but it has to be on your radar. So speaking of kind of growing into that, our last pre-sent question from Seth, who's on. Thank you for being on and asking great questions. Is what do you do when you want to have an ISA but you don't have enough work for them full time? Could they fall into some other roles, or like how would you grow that if you can't just hire a full time ISA right off the bat?
Yeah, I had several questions about that to start, which was, the answer to that is going to be so dependent on whether you're in a team model or if you're a single agent or if you have somebody else working next to you. So there's probably a bunch of different ways you could go with this. The answer is yes. It's just how do you want to pivot and which lane do you go with? So my first thought was you could share that person with another agent if you're on a team. So even if your businesses aren't connected, maybe they don't need a full-time person and you don't, but you figure out the hours or you figure out the compensation. We actually have two agents on our team that are sharing a showing assistant right now, and it's working really. They have to be committed to good communication with each other, and they have to be in good relationship with each other to make that third person, they're a person. So as long as you remember that person in the middle is not just a way to get stuff done, they are a real person too. It's fine, it works. But that's a way to kind of manage that. The other thing, if you're a single agent, is to look at your business and decide, what do I really need help with? Is it prospecting? Is that what we're talking about with an ISA? So are we doing outbound calls, or are they acting more as like a lead manager and just answering the phone for you on calls that are incoming? Because those are two different maybe ways to play that. And then the other piece is that really what you need? Because are they going to be the best at converting right out of the gate? Are they going to have the right scripts? Do you have enough time to give them all of that knowledge? Or is there a place that you could send them for training to have that? Or do you need a transaction manager? Or do you need a marketing like, is it something different that maybe you need? And the marketing piece or the transaction manager piece is a little bit easier as a single agent because you can outsource most of that. There are a ton of really great transaction management companies or marketing companies that will come alongside and say, I'll only do this for 15 hours, or it's per deal. And so that makes that piece a lot easier to pick up. The other thought I had for you was, if you do this and you do combine roles, the giftings for those roles are going to be completely different. So your high I personality that wants to be in the field with clients and showing homes is not going to be super happy in a seat answering the phone for a long time. And opposite, if this guy, if this person is driven and they've got that Teflon personality where they can take the no and the hangups and the whatever, they may not want to be in the field with clients. So you got to kind of figure out what gifting, and then a plan. Like, how long will you be in both roles? Or is my intention for you to go here or here? And having the like timeline attached to it, and then defining your role in that too, because what's going to happen is if they're cultivating their own leads and going out and showing them, and then you're coming in at the end, they need to understand that the hurdles of the transaction are actually some of the hardest parts of real estate, because if they're new to real estate, they don't know that yet. So they need to understand that your value of, I'm going to write the contract, or I'm going to, take over at this point for all of the negotiating or inspections, appraisal, et cetera, hurdles. You're just going to have to prove value on those things to a brand new person to make sure that they understand what their role is. So a little bit of a convoluted answer for you, but hopefully there were a few nuggets or thoughts in there, Sep, that would help you think through, what could I really do with this?
Yeah, I think those are all great answers. And the two things I just want to reiterate are, one of the things you said as far as like own your own skill set first, like start with the self-assessment and then hire to fill that gap. And I guess it's kind of a B to that. People all the time just hire people they like. They're like, oh, this person's great. And it's like, but if you're a strong salesperson and you're looking for a marketing person, you got to remember you're looking for a not you. So just because you like them or whatnot, like they're probably means they're a little more like you. So just be careful in that, is it sales or marketing, or can they be both? Because that does happen. And we won't go too deep on it because we've got a lot of stuff, but I want to mention, you and I both have kind of that creative background, but we're organized. So if somebody's looking, maybe we'll do the like 2-minute answer on if somebody's looking for like an operations person. I know for me, I look for discipline, where did they do dance at a high level or play soccer or something like that. What are some other key, just to the ops piece for a second, and then we'll hit our questions. Like, who is that? Who is that unicorn?
Oh man, I think they're hard to find, number one. So they're out there, that's for sure. I think looking for, like Lee said, looking for people that have had success in other areas, and then looking for marks of creativity. So have they had success in business, but do they also play an instrument and they are really good at it? Or if you they are into art and again they're really good at it, or they've like there's a study piece there too. Maybe they're not an artist, but they know so much, like they're an expert at it. So there's a pairing between the creative and the organizational and system piece that I think is, again, kind of tricky to find, but there are a lot of people out there. They just kind of tend to hide in partially because they're busy doing it for someone else probably, or for themselves. So, but they are out there. I look for track record of success. I also look for the details. And when they fill out our career page, are things spelled correctly? Did they fill out the right forms? Did they upload the thing? And we purposely on our career page and our inquiry run them through a couple of hurdles. Nothing major. I don't like games. I just don't think people need that in their life. But saying upload your disc, upload your resume, upload your stuff. If they don't do those things, it shows you something about who they're going to be in your business. I will email back and forth on purpose and just see, like, does the conversation change after I've met you once? Are you more casual? Do you stay more professional? Does your spelling go off the chart? Like, I'm watching because I want to know how you're going to be with our clients, or if I'm looking for an agent, and it's different for every seat. Like if I'm looking for a client care coordinator, I need hyper organized. We need those, I's dotted and T's crossed. So those emails need to be really nice coming in on interviews and onboarding. If I'm looking for marketing, that's a totally different skill set. So operations, you're looking for that mix. Are they organized? Do you see a track record of success, and are they attached to something maybe creative in their world too? Because I think that's a marker.
That's great. That's awesome. I think I'm just gonna if you're good with it, I'm just gonna let you tackle the Q&A. I don't think me reading you questions is necessarily the best path forward.
Sure. Let's just start at the top and kind of, let's see. So technology stack, I think we sort of covered that. We're Google, Gmail, Suite all the way. Follow-up Boss, certainly. Slack for just communication behind the scenes. Facebook, our team has a hidden page on Facebook that we use, and it's more fun. It's like background stuff or people sharing adventures in real estate. We actually have a behind the scenes group for our clients as well. They get invited in at closing. And that's a tip or two, guys. That's something you can implement today, that it creates connection to your team or to your brokerage. All your agents are in there, or you as a single agent. It's a great time to do it. Let's see. And then we're transitioning to monday.com for our transactions. And again, that speaks to Loop, speaks to Follow Boss, and everything kind of connects that way. Transaction managers handle management, and so again, that's the Monday piece. They have the 6 hurdles. They are communicating with all of the parties as themselves, as a partner to the agents. All of their emails are tied into Follow Boss too, so everyone can see everything tied into the client cards. And then we're in the background making sure that everything gets saved, just for making sure we're compliant. We covered growth for the agents. Features and Follow Boss that I think are critical. I am a huge Follow Boss advocate. They do not pay me to say this. I almost brought my Follow Boss coffee mug today because I know this one isn't it, because I know that's a hot button. Dan better start ordering more coffee mugs because we all want them. But there's so many good features. The texting, being able to text multiple people at one time right now is massive. Like that's a huge advantage. Follow Boss in general, just the organizational structure of it, the fact that it is easy to teach to a new agent is huge. So for someone like me who lives in the operational world and has to figure out how to get people to play in these systems or teach them these systems, bringing on a new agent, it's so easy for them to understand what's happening, how to use it, how to manipulate it to get around. The reporting features are also my favorite, being the operational person, being able to see lead source breakdown. How many calls came in today? How many calls came in from this source today? How fast did we get to those calls? Like That's huge for us. And then custom fields. I cannot say enough about custom fields. And I think people get a little bit tripped up when they hear the word custom field because they're like, oh, it's not meant to work this way. And the truth is it's meant to work exactly that way. So I have probably, I don't even know how many custom fields we have. It's probably more than we should, but things like birthday or occupation is a big one. Or for us, we link our spouses down in our custom fields. So our primary person is up top, their phone number, their stuff is up top. And then custom fields, we've just said, hey, we want to know who their partner, spouse, et cetera, is here. We want to know phone number, email for that person. We want to know birthday for that person. And we want to know occupation for that person. And so we max out our custom fields. And especially now that a lot of those can be used as merge tags, it's just brilliant. So that part is great. We're loving automations. The fact that we can serve things up from our lead pool when they're raising their hand. We can see the things that they're doing. So I'm going to end up naming every feature of Follow Up Boss because, again, I'm just a really large fan. But the biggest piece of it is that it's just easy for folks to use. And that is the best part. Also in here, do we have a recruiting email drip campaign? We don't. So this is one of the things that makes us a little bit different. We don't really recruit much. And some of it is just our reputation in the marketplace means we always have agents on the bench. Not hiring very often means we always have agents that are knocking on the door asking to come in. It's different and we know that, and we will, like, that's a gift that we have that I don't take that lightly for a second. My heart goes out to people that have to recruit all the time because I know how difficult that is. My suggestion would be to take care of the person in front of you at the highest level possible so that your reputation starts to grow. If you are a team leader, be bragging on your agents, be bragging on your staff outwardly, publicly. They need it because it feels good when people notice the hard work that we're doing, and be authentic about it. Because if you mean it, they will know that, and the audience that's reading it will know that. And what happens is naturally people just decide they're attracted to that. They want to come be in a place where they will be appreciated. They want to be in a place where they will be noticed. Our agents naturally write about how much they love working for us because we're constantly telling them and showing them why they should love working for us. And it's somewhat systematized for us. So, and that maybe could be a whole different webinar, Lee, on how to care for your crew at a high level so that they want to do those things. But
nobody ever talks about that in recruiting, right? Like make your agents your army for recruiting.
And that's it. The last 5 people we onboarded, I believe 4 out of the 5 came from other teammates that said, hey, you have to hire my friend because they're amazing, or I've worked with them already, or this is a brand, or this is a new person getting into real estate, but I already know they're going to be successful. And our agents don't bring people to us that they don't feel like are going to be culture fits, that they don't feel like are going to work at a high level because they understand what we're trying to do, and they want to protect the brand as much as we do. So we don't have a drip, but at the same time, there is a little bit of a formula to all of that. And then how often are we running onboarding sessions? Again, we don't hire often. And because of our reputation and because, again, we're a little more uniquely set, we are running right now about twice a quarter. So we ran 2. I ran a fall onboarding in September, and then we ran one starting right after Thanksgiving. That class just launched last Friday. And so we only ran 2. I would imagine we'll be at about 2 a quarter going forward because of the growth that we're anticipating. And I don't know that we could handle more than that, if I'm going to be very honest and transparent about that. I think it would tax our team too much. I think it would tax our mentors too much. It would tax me too much to be trying to manage all of those new personalities and new people, because you want them to integrate with the old, blend with the old, all of that good stuff well. And then cute cat, she must have jumped up behind me and I didn't notice. Thank you. I appreciate that, Seb. I think that was all of the ones.
Yeah, there's a chunk more in the Q&A. We're technically kind of over time, but we want to just try to run through them real fast.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was reading out of the chat. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I'll tee them up to you real quick. So somebody asked, how do transaction managers handle management and documentation of inspections since they're not there?
Yeah, so they're being included on all the emails. Most of our agents work with a certain subset of inspectors, so their assistants all know to include our crew in, which helps. And then they're just helping coordinate with the agent and with the clients. So they're just involved in the daily communication on that. And anything that they're communicating is being kept. Any of the documentation going back and forth that needs to be pulled down and saved and stored is being pulled down by them. And
there's a lot of things to which your answer was just good communication. I mean, you didn't say that, but I'm in my head, I'm just thinking it's just good communication. It's just good communication.
No, you're 100% right. Heather, I'm so glad you asked this actually. What if the person isn't Christian? I'm going to assume this was about ornaments and Christmas cards. They're holiday cards, not Christmas cards. If I said Christmas, it's just because I'm staring at my own Christmas decorations. But we are very careful about the wording, and we make sure that we've said happy holidays. They're not typically red and green. They're typically like, I don't know, last year they were like a light dusty blue and a rust color, but they look wintry. This year it was like a dark gray and kind of a teal color with maybe a little bit of cranberry, but not distinctly red and green. And then the ornaments, even so, they don't say Merry Christmas on them. They would, I think this year said Home Sweet Home 2020. Like, we actually did an ornament that had like a 2020 with toilet paper on it. That's, I don't know, had a cute phrase about, 2020 being the year of toilet paper, but purposely didn't make them Christmassy. And I did consult before we did this with a few personal friends that come from other religious backgrounds and said, hey, if you were as a Jewish person to get this in the mail, is this going to be offensive or how would you receive? So we did a little bit of recon on how others may or may not receive that. And if there's backlash on that, I've never heard of anything. I think most people just really enjoy being thought of. But Heather, I think that's a really great question. So thank you for asking that. Communication tools to hand off to the next phase or step. That's a really good question. So our agents, when they have a file and they're like, hey, my contract is accepted on the buy side, they're turning that in. And so they used to turn it in through the company that we used to use. And I'm trying not to say their name because I don't want to throw anybody, like, I don't want anybody thinking they're a bad company. They're amazing. We just kind of grew out. But through Dotloop, they can do a workflow, they can turn it in, there are tasks associated with that. And then that's going to trigger their client care coordinator. Oh, I have a new file. Okay, I've got to pick up my head on that one. And so that's easy. The lead management side of that, it's similar. So we're, making people collaborators, or we're pinging people, or we're just, texting and saying, hey, do you have the ball on this? So it goes back to that communication piece. The tools are really, in the transactions, it's consistency. So I open my contract, it gets accepted, I finish the checklist to turn it in. Or list side, we know we're going to do it. So you have to initiate listing paperwork, same thing. Initiate your paperwork, you do your checklist, the checklist triggers the client care coordinator, and in this case, the listing coordinator, then a brand new listing is coming. Our client care coordinator doesn't even know it exists until they get through paperwork. And then she is triggering them to say, hey, this is ready. And she's actually queuing up their first email for them as a template with all of the information because she's filled it in, she knows. And then it comes from them. They look like they're the expert. They look like they know exactly what's going on, but she has teed them up. So for me, all you have to do to figure that out in your business is go, where are my handoffs? We call them pink balls. Mainly because the day I taught about it, I pulled a pink ball out of my garage. So it's become a pink ball. And it's how do you make a handoff without the client feeling jiggled or dropped or thrown or passed? And then for us, it's just a reminder, this thing needs to pass smoothly no matter what. So thinking through, if an agent needs to turn in a contract, how can we as smoothly as possible pass the ball from this person to this person? And which systems are we already using that could talk to each other to get that ball passed? And so it's the same thing as trying to figure out your plan for recruiting or ornaments. It's all the same stuff. It's just thinking through what's my connection point and how do I fix this one? And now I'm going to go fix this one. And then I'm going to fix this one. And then all of a sudden your process is super smooth. So, but that was a really great question. Client care coordinator in this context means transaction coordinator. So for those of you that know what a transaction coordinator is, same exact thing. We just call them client care coordinators. Let's see. Seems like they're willing to support the agents. They are a transaction coordinator.
Yeah, sorry, that was the same. That was a follow up to that you already covered. So
yeah. Our organization does not provide coaching or consulting formally. However, Jenny Wemert, our team leader, and myself, both of us together and or individually are always willing to take a call and try to at least point you in the right direction. We know lots of great people that do provide coaching and consulting. You're looking at one on the screen with me. So we will probably point you in Lee's direction for a lot of those things. And we know a couple of others as well. So I'm happy to always take a message or a call, and we'd be happy to point you in the right, or if it's a simple thing that we can help you with, we would be happy to do that
Yeah,
too.
and to that point too, there's so much content now in Follow Boss as well. Like you and I have done a one-on-one interview. We've done interviews with Jenny. Um, there's a lot of content out there, and I think it's great that people want to invest in that. But Follow Boss is really providing an unbelievable amount of content to help you get that insight too. So
Yeah, Mark, I would also say the Follow Boss group, our community page, is growing so much right now. And Lee and I are both very active on that page. You may get tired of my quotes and my stories on that page, but there are so many good people that are doing things in lots of different ways. So we're the Teamerage model. You've got folks that are single agents doing this at a high level that if you ask your question there, it may get answered in lots of ways from lots of really smart people. So that would be another place to put those questions in. Would I be willing to share our client care coordinator checklist or job duties? That would be, I can. It would just be a little bit tricky because I'd have to pull it down from a couple of places for you because they're in like the hurdles. But if that would be helpful to you, Onia, will you? We'll figure out how to get that to people.
yeah, or we can drop it in the replay, the comments in the replay or something.
Yeah, I'll have to take the time to pull that down for you, but I'd be happy to share. Mark, we are not using call action right now, but I love Jesse and think Jesse has a brilliant mind. And it's definitely a product that would work for quite a few teams out there or folks that would need those services. So it would be worth doing the research into, but we are not currently using it to answer your question. All right, or things you're working on automating. Yeah, I have a list right now. Lee and I were literally talking about this before we logged on of like, what are we trying to wrap up before like Christmas gets here? Right. And I have this like giant checklist of things we're trying to kind of do. For me, I'm trying to get us into Monday and make sure this transition happens really seamlessly over the next couple of weeks before we really get crazy busy. I don't know that I'm going to offload much these days. Because we've sort of built our model around having in-house people that are actually touching the things. We've tried some of the VA route or some of the, and as you get bigger, you don't need that. You can hire the person who can become the expert and sit in the seat and captain that for your brokerage. I think it really works as you need it. But for us right now, no. But there's always something to build, always something to go figure out how to automate. I'm waiting, Dan, for deals to be in the automation. Just wink, wink, make that happen. Yes.
Who do you got to know to get the deals in the automation?
Yeah. Yes. I think that would be great. Any other questions
somebody asked about Monday.com. Are you setting it up or did you hire somebody?
I'm setting it up.
Yeah, I figured
we're building it.
You want to know it.
We debated it actually because I was trying to figure out how to leverage my own time because that's the other piece of this. As the operations person, you can't do everything, so you have to ask yourself like what needs to be me and what can be somebody else. With Monday though, because we were trying to scale up and because I wanted our compliance director to have input and our client care coordinator or transaction manager to have input, and I wanted to stay really tightly involved in the development of it.
Right. That's great. We got 3 quick questions and we'll go. Like people are still on. There's like 2 people have hopped off. So we'll finish.
I have time. So whatever works.
So somebody asked about lead flow and lead assignments. How long are agents on lead shifts and how long? And then they also asked, I mean, you can see it there. And did they understand that uncontacted are handled by the lead shift until contacted?
Yes, correct. So we've tried lots of variations of this over the years. And what we've realized is agents get tired and distracted really fast. So we've put them on 4-hour shifts. So they're only on 4 hours at a time. We start answering the phone at about 8:30 in the morning, and the shifts run until about 10:30 at night with our shifts on. So it just kind of keeps changing hands throughout the day. When it's an uncontacted lead for us, and again, this is just our workflow, this doesn't work for everybody, it kind of stays in our like lead bucket as an uncontacted lead. If the agent makes contact with them or is able to convert that lead, they can either keep it and assign it to themselves, or they can assign it to a team member and say, hey, you can pay me a referral on this. And then it works too. So they have some options on how they want to handle the leads that they are able to connect with, and they become contacted leads.
That's great. I love that. And somebody just asked simply and anonymously, because this is a really, really controversial subject, but are you guys using checklists or forms, or what, how are these things that you're doing manifested?
Checklist or forms in regards to which piece?
Great question. But I mean, are they, so I guess, are these Monday.com things? Are they follow-up boss? Like, I assume
So
that's what they mean. And since they're
yeah,
anonymous, we can't ask them. So
we'll guess. So Monday.com is really like a super, super large intelligent spreadsheet. That's what it is. So it's built to have columns and you can adjust things. And if you adjust a column, it's gonna send out an alert, or the Zap is gonna put something in a column, coming back from Dotloop or from the other places. So it's a bit of a mix though. Our transaction coordinators or client care coordinators using Monday, the spreadsheet version is so wonderful because they can quickly navigate, they can search fields, they can maneuver really easily. And this giant, basically what you do, because I saw somebody say, oh, it's over my head, is you're going to build one big giant spreadsheet with all of the fields you could ever want. And then you're going to create views. So you're going to create these views of like, I want to only see our coming soon inventory, or I want to only see, as a client care coordinator or transaction manager, I want to only see the agents I'm working with, and I only need to see this information or this hurdle or whatever. So you're taking this giant thing and just making it a chunk that someone might want to actually look at. And the intelligent piece is, if I'm in this particular view and I type in a cell, it's going to change it across all the spreadsheets. So the information isn't changing. You're not having to relog it 6 times. You're putting it in once, and it's going to go out to everywhere that it needs to go. Or it's, you change a date and it's going to affect every field that's associated with that one column that has said this date affects these 6 other columns. And so it just makes their life a little easier. It lets them have more of a spreadsheet view. They can search at a glance for exactly what they're looking for quickly. Because for us, our folks are on the phone. Our client care coordinators are heroes. Like they're legit, like they need capes, just like the A team, because they're on the phone constantly. They have to pivot quickly. They need to have 3 tabs open with the thing they're working on right now and the thing the other 3 people are calling about. And so it's just the reality of their world. So it's a lot of dashboard view, but they have individual checklists based on the hurdles. So when it comes to, inspection, they're looking for certain things or they're chasing certain things, and those are going to look more checklisty based on that particular. So it's a checklist within a dashboard, if that makes sense. And then forms come into play with how we fill in the dashboard.
right.
So if I'm an agent and I'm out, and again, this is more high level, but if I'm out over in Dotloop and I fill out my contract and I have my workflow, the tasks are filling in back onto the spreadsheet. Or you can send out a form and say, here's a questionnaire, and they could fill out the form instead of doing tasks, and the form could fill in the spreadsheet. So there are lots of ways to accomplish it. We're more on spreadsheet and task list than we are on forms. For the inside and for the outside where the agents are at, we're basically trying to minimize how many programs they're in. I don't want them in 900 places. They will never remember where to go or what to click or where to be. So if they can learn Follow Boss and master their database, and if they can master sending out their contracts through Dotloop and doing their little checklist when they say, yes, this is executed, I need to turn this in, or yes, this is a new listing, I need to turn this in, they don't need to be in Monday. The girls in the office need to be in Monday. If they can live in those 2 lanes, they're all set. So there's your very long-winded answer to
No,
forms.
that's really great. And I just want to wrap with saying that we're just gonna have to do this like at least once a month. You just talk with people and help, because everybody talks about leads and all this stuff, but I don't think there's enough. I mean, obviously you and I could talk about this all day, but I think there's just not enough conversation about that. And you're in a unique place to be able to understand it, and also be able to relate to people who want to maybe grow to that but aren't quite there. So I really appreciate your time, and it's always awesome to talk with you and hang out. And
no, I appreciate being asked. It's fun. I can talk about this all day too. So it's
totally,
we can help lots of people start moving their pieces forward. It'd be
we'll
fun.
help people have a better operational 2021. That'll be our motto.
Yes.
Very good. All right, thanks, Emily. I'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody.